So, yeah. Good afternoon. Welcome everybody to the River Trust. I know you're surprised that I'm here, and I'm surprised that I'm here, but I'm not going to be here long. If you bring in the weather like you're bringing in, I'll let Mr. Stone sit down. You ready? First item on the agenda is to approve the minutes of December 22nd, which are in your packet.
Move approval.
Anybody have any corrections or additions to those minutes? Recorded voting. I'll let you vote. Please record your vote. It's approved. Let's see. Everybody's. Why don't you flip that one off right next to you? Yeah. Yeah. No, not that far. There we go. Your own strength. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Next item is the consent docket. We have the sand mining report, oil and gas, and the Oklahoma River Corridor updates event.
Move approval of all four items.
Been moved and seconded. You have anything Mike or Pat need to talk about on events or anything that's on the agenda? Okay, seeing none, then we have a motion and second. Please record your vote. That's approved unanimously. Thank you. Item 5 is primary agenda items. First one is adopt a resolution for approving final concept of the Oklahoma River website and directing staff to coordinate with downtown OKC on final production, which I think we have sitting in front of us.
You do, Mr. Chairman. This is a follow-on to the presentation we made a couple of months back toward the end of 2009. The layout is basically the same. There are several things that I would call to your attention. One is that this website will be managed under the city's okc.gov website. So that domain will be basically where this will be housed, and it will be managed out of the PIO certainly with input from the river staff. In addition to the layout that we have, each of these main buttons is an active click that takes you to various areas of interest of the citizenry. For example, in the visit section, this is more of an orientation where people are looking for where to park, where they can fish, where the boat docks are located, where the fishing piers may be located. All of those orientation kinds of things are under visit, as well as some activity venues, the Chesapeake Boathouse, Devon Boathouse, and then, of course, as the other boathouses come online for the University of Central Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, and even the Finish Line Tower, these particularly points of interest will be having their own area of access where there will be some graphics, locational maps available, and so forth. Events, and as you could tell from the list of events that you just received, we're already stacking up with a pretty full slate of activities for the spring and summer and fall, and of course we haven't even set the date for the Devon annual holiday boat parade, so there's many more events to come. So this is intended to be a one-stop shop for citizens who have an interest in what's going on the river. They can come to this section of our website and get up-to-date information on what's happening, if it's a fee-based event or if it's free to the public, what the hours of operation are, the location, and so forth. And we've, as an example, shown how these would be divided out once you're into the events section, so that you can click on a live button and it links you exactly to all the date, time, place, and details about the event. So we think this will be a good service to the general public. We've added a section on history, a little bit of a perspective on the river as it has always run through Oklahoma City, from the early days to the days of flooding to the days of the Corps of Engineers process of rechannelizing and actually redirecting the river, moving it. And then, of course, the MAPS era and today what we're enjoying. And we'll also have a link on there about the MAPS 3 project so that people can watch the progress of that as well. In terms of economic development, I get any number of calls every week from people interested in economic development activities, working with certainly existing folks here in town on hotel development out on the West End, and other people of interest from really all over the country. So we think this will be a place where we can direct them for at least some preliminary information, maps, graphics, general information, guidelines on development, so that there's a single point of information for all of these inquiries. Then if there's significant interest expressed, then we can certainly follow up with more detailed discussions and additional documents that may be required. But at least we would like to have a live site that provides those basic documents to spark further interest on the part of those who are inquiring. Each of the buttons, once you go on to a particular section of our website, will have live links that will go to other affiliated stakeholders, I guess you would say, of a non-commercial nature. Because we are under the OKC.gov domain, we cannot put a commercial activity or venture on the website. That's not consistent with the policy. But, for instance, the Oklahoma City Boathouse Foundation is certainly a major stakeholder. Their activities and events are certainly a part of the River Corridor Activity Plan, and therefore we would offer links as appropriate to those entities who are significant stakeholders and active in our river development. In addition to the layout, I would call your attention to some links that we will have to documents, including the Scenic River Overlay Zoning Ordinance, the ordinance establishing fishing and boating authority and where you can and what the fees are. All of those kinds of documents will be available to the citizenry from this site. In addition, we will have maps of the corridor showing where we can park, where the public can access the water, zoning maps, the overlay zone district itself and where the various subzones are located along the river. In terms of economic development, we will have a master aerial that can be divided into sections so that if somebody wants to look at a particular area of the river corridor, there will be a link to pull down that map and take a look at that particular section. And then activity links, as I mentioned a bit earlier, where people can go and see what activities are going on and what the fee might be and what the hours of operation might be. So we feel very good about the work that's been accomplished here to date. What we're asking today is to, in a general way, approve the concept so that we can begin implementation. The Downtown Oklahoma City, Inc. folks have been very helpful. They have worked with Kevin Bright of Bright Creative, who has also done some work for the city's public information office. We're very comfortable with the quality of his work and the timeliness, and so staff believes this is a good plan moving forward, and we recommend approval.
Comments?
Just
yes,
a very quick question, Pat, and I think you just answered it in that last sentence, but will there be a link from the Downtown Oklahoma City site to this page? Or?
Yes, reciprocal links will be worked out with DOKC, with the Boathouse Foundation, so we have to be careful about the policy of non-commercial links, but I think we have a number of stakeholders, particularly including the downtown folks, that would be appropriate.
Great.
Larry?
Sir.
If an event doesn't have a date, when the website goes live, you won't just put in the date from the prior event, I hope.
We would not.
Have you looked at the Devon holiday entry on your chart?
On this is by way of example, yes.
I know, but...
No, we will have the correct and up-to-date information as it is received by this body. It will also be plugged in for future events.
Question. The commercial event, an example, would that be like the drag boat?
Well, because it's an event that is permitted on the river, I believe that event would be permitted to be on our site. Now, if it is many times, then that site might link to Ozarka Water, for example, or some commercial entity. we would not be in a position to allow that link to take place, but as long as it's information just about the event, if it is the Ozarka Grand National event or some other title sponsor,
So basically,
that's
if
perfectly
we've
fine.
issued a special use permit or some sort of permit out of here, that'd probably be okay
The
then?
best example I can think of is the Devon Energy Holiday Boat Parade. That's the fact that Devon is a sponsor, the title sponsor of that event, would not preclude it from being on the site. However, we would not permit a link to devonenergy.com, for example,
Right.
where that would be considered a commercial enterprise, and that would not be
But
consistent
you
with
think,
policy.
in the case, specifically in the case of Mike with the drag boat event that's coming this year, is that permissible to be on the website to promote when it is, where it is?
Yeah,
and
no,
that?
that's no different than any other event. You can go to the Civic Center website, and you can have all the events that are at the Civic Center.
Okay.
So you can go to
Okay.
our website, and
Okay,
we'll
I
list
just wanna
all the
make sure.
events that are at the river.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure when you said, because that has somewhat of a commercial value to it, I think, one way or another.
Yeah, the fact that there is a commercial sponsor is not an issue. It's linking further to the website of the commercial sponsor that would not be consistent with city policy.
Okay, okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
a couple of things. Now, when you go to visit, and it says Oklahoma River Cruises, that is a link to be able to, I mean, I'm thinking that people may go see Visit so they can book tickets, so that gets them right to that.
Yes, that will link straight over to the Oklahoma River Cruises.
And
site.
then, I always look at these things as how people might, questions they might have. Under biking and hiking, do we actually show a trail map and maybe tell them how many miles that is, or feet, or whatever, so they can get an idea of?
Yes, we will show, one of our map links shows the bicycle trails where you can park your car and take your bike off the bike rack and use the trails.
So, show me how I get to that.
Well,
I mean, like, is that under,
it would be one of the sublinks under Visit.
so you might hyperlink biking and hiking and hit that, and it goes to a map?
It goes to a map, and it would have a narrative that would explain, the hours. You're not allowed to be down there 24 hours, for example. There are limits and so forth. So,
In this site, you go to okc.gov.
yes.
Okay, what's on that page to say, what gets us to the river site?
Well, there will be a link for the river website, but we will also have a specific river domain that will actually feed to the okc.gov site. So
Well, is this not the OKC.gov menu up here on top?
it is, and that will be in position regardless.
And then,
But that does not preclude us from having a separate domain name. We might call it, for example, oklahomariver.org or some similar deal. But once you click on that or type that in, it will take you to the correct area of the okc.gov domain.
well, under OKC.gov right now, are we under things to do, or?
We are not there at all right now, but once we go live, there will be a button that you can click that will take you to the Oklahoma River section.
So we will be listed among all these major menu items?
Yes. We will be listed, and we will also have a special or a separate domain name
Right.
that will link us over to this
Well, it's
area.
probably okc.gov/river or something like that.
Something along those lines. I'm not absolutely certain of the detailed computer architecture that's going to be involved, but that's the general idea.
I think Wayne's question, and I agree, this is once we get into our site.
Yes.
While we're in the city site, if you're not real computer literate, somebody's going to want to know, okay, how do I get there? Do I do things to do, or where do I go? I mean, I haven't seen the city site in a long time, so I don't remember what it looks like. But is there a place that you could do, like the river logo or something, where they'd know?
One of these things, I mean, you drop down any of these titles, I'm sure there's a long listing of
Right.
downlinks.
Correct.
And it would seem that if we think that we're going to be one of the most popular, you could just literally say Oklahoma River or River, and that would go straight into the site. But I'm sure, like, if they want to go okc.gov and find out about our parks, you would go to, what, citizen services or things to do?
You could either do that, or you could go under departments, and then every department is listed, including Parks and Recreation, and that takes you to the /parks area. So
Your comment is that we're going to be promoting okc.gov/river as the site, and hopefully they'll bypass.
they can come straight to our section of the website.
Well, just as though developing it, just make it as user-friendly as possible, I think is what we're trying to say, where you don't, I mean, where you, it's really, to a novice, if they get to the government site, then they could, if they want to get to our site, they can figure out how to do it pretty easy. I think that's important.
We will work with the technical folks and Christy Yeager and her office to make sure that within the confines of the overall OKC.gov that we can make it absolutely user-friendly. And then I think we'll want to certainly promote this site as a direct link in where and when appropriate.
Hey, Ron, I have
Yeah.
another thing.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that we're going into what the motion capture should be, visit, event, before and after the event. But our stakeholders, the taxpayers, I think always like to go to the site and see what's happening at the river. And I don't know which one of these has that, but I mean, we talked about the park work behind the hotels, or, you know, the new docking area for the winter docking for the cruise ships. I mean, where do they learn about it? I always thought that this would be a good place to share, you know, and see some of the actions that we see about improvements and
Put your mic on. There you go.
about improvements and so forth. I mean, I understand that this is for river events. If you want to come visit us, here's how to get there. Economic development, see, I think you can substitute economic development for what I just described.
Well,
I don't know whether
certainly-
economic development is as important as I'm a stakeholder, I'm a taxpayer. I wonder what they're doing down at the river.
Well, and as the MAPS 3 programs come forward and are fleshed out and the timing is established and oversight board and so forth established, you know, you make a very excellent point. And we do have a lot of work going on, even
My
over above
opinion
that.
is that the general public is less concerned about economic development. That's a very narrow audience that somebody should be addressing one-on-one versus informing the general using public of the neat things going on at the river other than the events.
I think that's a great idea. We will work to find a suitable and very visible spot for maybe progress on the river or something of that nature. And I think with the concurrence of the board here, we'll certainly make that a highlighted area, because I think that's a very good point. People would like to know, you know, what construction is going on, what the status of the various projects may be at any given time, and particularly once the MAPS 3 progress begins to kick in, then that becomes an even more intense area of interest, I would think. So we will take that to heart.
Okay. Anything else? Do we have a motion? We need a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Record your vote. That's approved unanimously. Thank you. Next item is is to recommend, and we need to add the word adopt. Is that correct? We need to adopt the resolution authorizing payment for property taxes in the amount of $316.76. The donated property is at 1,000 South McKinley. City manager turned on his mic, so he wants to talk. Go ahead.
A few years ago, we had a tract of land donated to us, and as it turns out, somehow through the title, there was an unpaid tax issue on it. The county is continuing to push for collection of the taxes. We are in ownership of the property, and I don't think it's reasonable to go back to the original property owner on it this many years after the fact, so we'd recommend that for this meager amount that we go forward and pay the
If you
tax.
couldn't get him to waive it, Butch wouldn't just write it off as a bad debt or anything?
Not so much.
Okay. Is there a second? Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yeah, Gary.
Just so I'm clear, we paid the taxes since we've owned it in '04.
We don't pay tax.
Well, I mean, this delinquency is not since we've owned it.
That's correct.
Okay. We're just paying,
Previous, they just now found
but
it.
they haven't been able to get out of the people that donated to us.
Any further discussion? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. We won't send Butch a birthday card next year or anything. Tease him about that a little bit, 360. Probably cost him more than that paperwork.
Well, we talked that he could, just foreclose on the property and then take.
Well, no, we don't want him to do that.
And then donate it back to us.
Well,
But that was probably
That's probably not going to
yeah.
happen. Item C is adopt joint resolution of Oklahoma City Riverfront Redevelopment Authority and the city declaring intent to construct a boat ramp and related apparatus in the eastern basin, similar to the one that we had to remove. And this replaces the grant that we received from the Department of Wildlife Conservation.
There's a ramp that was on the east side of Lincoln that was used for a number of events. And with the construction of the Devon Boathouse and the shoreline improvements that we've done over the last year, that boat ramp had to go away. It's no longer, it's in the way and it can't be used as such. And because it was originally constructed with federal dollars, we have a obligation to either return the funds or replace it. And so we do have the need for an additional boat ramp, not only for the Chesapeake Boathouse, as Mr. Knapp's down there nodding his head, but also for other events like the Devon Boat Parade and for the drag boat races if they were returned down in that area. And so we've identified a area on the south side of the river, south and slightly to the west of Lincoln, and it'll have access off of the Lincoln on the south side to the west.
Which side of the railroad tracks?
West of the tracks.
West of the tracks.
But immediately west of the tracks. Just right there. And the reason that was chosen was because otherwise you got to cross the tracks, and it's a problem for access.
But they can get to it off of Lincoln and go under the railroad to get to it?
On Lincoln, the tracks start on the east side, and then they go forth, and we'll always be on the west side of it.
Okay.
Come off the Lincoln Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Immediately turn back
Down the side.
north again, you come down there, and then you can go along
Right.
the south side of the track to get to this area. You never cross the track.
Well, you know the bridge I'm talking about that has the railroad tracks, that the parade.
Yep.
It's on the west side of that or the east side of that?
Just immediately to the west.
Okay, so you got to go under it, or you got to do something.
Well, we have problems crossing the track. That's one of the reasons that we chose the site we did.
Well, you got to go under the tracks?
No?
You don't go under the tracks on land. You go under the tracks. Once you launch the boat, you'd have to cross underneath the railroad bridge to come back east. But on land, you stay south of the tracks. Is that right, Jim?
Yes. That's correct. We have a map.
Just west of Lincoln,
Has anybody got a map of this? Anybody got a map?
the tracks are mainly in such a way.
Right.
West of Lincoln, it starts over the river, and that's where the railroad bridge is.
Yeah, I know it angles, and I'm just trying to remember. I don't remember. I know the little side road you're talking about, but I don't know how you get to the other side of the track. I must not know where the track
We're always
runs.
on the west side track. We're always on the west side.
You start following the river going west before you cross the track.
Okay, I think. Anybody got a map? You got a map with you, Pat?
I don't.
Robbie, have a map for
we
anybody?
We neglected to put a site map in the presentation today, but the way this works, Mr. Chairman, is that railroad line that runs through and ultimately heads across the river with a bridge.
Right.
If you wanted to access the river north of that track, the track runs predominantly east-west and then kicks kind of northwest as it crosses the river. There is some city land property north of the railroad line that then abuts the river. We don't want to be in a position to put the boat ramp north of that because it would require us to get permission from Union Pacific to cross that line, and that would be very problematic. So instead of that, we have elected to stay south and west of that location, so we do not have any requirement to cross the railroad line in order to get boats launched.
So we really won't have any height restriction getting trailers with boats on them to the ramp, because they're not going to be going under anything.
Well, they're going underneath Lincoln.
Well,
Yeah, but,
when they come off of Lincoln,
yeah.
yeah, they come off of Lincoln, but that's real high.
You've seen some vehicles
Right,
on the south side of the river.
right, the maintenance.
Over on that area, but they have illegally crossed the track. They just driven across the track.
Okay.
Dirt road. That's not a formal track crossing at all. So officially, you'd have to stay south of the tracks and go down there and get past where the tracks head off.
Okay. Okay.
We were frankly concerned that it would delay the project substantially. The city engineer and I were discussing that, and it would really be a significant delay to get any level of permission from the railroad to cross their line, which is a very active line.
Okay. Okay. Now, what, did we forget something? He'd have mic on. Chief's mic wasn't on. Okay. Well, apparently they do now. Apparently they do now, so you got to get your mic on. Okay, item C then is to approve the joint resolution. Any further discussion? Need a motion? Second. Moved and second. Further discussion? Record your vote. Approved unanimously. Thank you. Ratify and approve an amendment to the joint city and Riverfront redevelopment request for proposal for maintenance, development, operation, and/or programming for a partial owned, normally or commonly known as Crystal Lake, which is there's a little map inside.
Actually, we put out the RFP. This is an
Amendment to it, right. What is the amendment? Specifically,
Just
changing
date.
the date? Okay, changing the date.
The date of the opening has been changed to reflect the standard day and time that the city clerk's office opens all presentations and proposals. So
Just a date change.
it just is an administrative change.
Okay. Been moved second. Discussion? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Next item is approved claims docket. Been moved and seconded. Any discussion? Record your vote. It's approved unanimously. Next item is any comments of staff? Director's report. Do you have anything you want to highlight in that, Pat? Or
No, sir, but I would be happy to entertain any questions of the trustees. Otherwise, would request the report be received as submitted.
okay, trustees have any questions of Pat? Okay. Any items from trustees? I have one. Just a note. I noticed I didn't pick it up until after we'd already passed the item, but the events calendar. I know the drag boat isn't on there, and it's probably because the permit hadn't been applied for yet, but the date's been set. Why don't you put that on there and then put pending or in process or something, just so that, that we don't.
Happy to do that.
Yeah, just, as Mike has the dates, I can't tell you what they are, but they're sometime in June, I think. I think they're in June. Anybody else have anything, trustees? Citizens to be heard? City manager? Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.